Welcome to another episode of the Lincoln Commission on Human Rights show. And welcome after a 2-year absence of not doing a show. So this is pretty awesome. My name is Francisca Beltran. I work with the Lincoln Commission on Human Rights as a community outreach coordinator. Our office investigates allegations of discrimination for employment, housing, and public accommodations. Our office also provides training and education about civil rights and relevant topics. So thank you so much for being with us today, and I am so proud to actually share this space today with TJ McDowell, who is one of the mayor's aides, and welcome. It is so awesome to see you here. It is fantastic that we are both able to sit here at this table.
It is.
And right prior to starting this, we were just having a conversation of how we both graduated from Lincoln High.
Yes.
So please introduce yourself.
People probably wouldn't believe that we graduated from high school 32 years ago. Neither one of us looked like we graduated from high school 32 years ago.
No, of course not.
So thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here and be on the show with you, and I'm super excited to be working in the mayor's office right now.
Awesome. That is so. When I heard that you were coming to work at the city, at first I was like, TJ, he's coming from UNL. What is TJ going to do?
Yeah.
So, and I know that the mayor has so many things on her agenda.
Yep.
But I would like people to get to know you and why you made the transition to work with the city.
It is exciting, and there were some of my friends who said, what are you thinking? What are you doing? And to me, I see it as a natural evolution of my career and what I've done in the community. And I'm from Lincoln, so that's really important. And I love Lincoln. Mm-hmm. I'm a Hartley Hornet, colored Cougar, Lincoln High Link class of '90. And when people ask me where I'm from, I say I'm from 3129 Dudley. And so I love Lincoln, and the opportunity to come work in the mayor's office and on behalf of my city was just, it was too exciting, too good of an opportunity to pass up. And so I was really excited, and you alluded to the why. I have this personal mission that's evolved, and part of it really started back at Lincoln High, mm-hmm. when you being around all the diversity. So I have this personal mission or vision that I want to live in a community where every member of that community can be their fully authentic self.
Absolutely.
And that that their important aspects of their identity will be acknowledged, celebrated, and valued, and that they wouldn't have to live in fear or have to downplay important parts of who they are to feel accepted and to feel like they belong, and that people would celebrate their diversity. And so, and we're all part of a lot of different communities, and,
yes.
and Lincoln is my community. And so yes. When the opportunity came to work on behalf of my community, to try to take some steps to make more people feel like their identities, who they were, mattered and valued, and increase their voice. That's why I took it. And when the mayor's One Lincoln initiative, which has to do with goals for diversity,
yes.
equity, inclusion, I said yes. And it's been 5 months, and I'm learning a lot.
There is a lot to learn, right?
There's a lot to learn.
There's so much to learn. And that Lincoln One initiative, it's an awesome initiative. And I'm happy that the city, has ignited that initiative. But I guess I would like the audience to know a little bit more about, we know that being part of this community is important to you and making sure that everybody still has their identity
Yeah.
and who they are. But what steps are you taking, or is the office taking, to ensure that our community members mm-hmm. feel that they can continue being who they are,
yeah.
yet coming together as a community?
As I've been in this role for 5 months, there's lots of people who don't feel like the democratic process, the governmental
mm-hmm.
process, that their voices are heard. And so a big part of it is finding ways to increase the diversity of voices that advise and serve the city, so city boards and commissions. So making sure that we have qualified, diverse candidates to serve on those boards and commissions, because they're so important. They play such a vital role to the city, advising the mayor and the departments and the city council. So that's one way, is to try to make sure that we're pulling from a diverse pool of Lincoln residents to serve on those committees. So that's one thing. It's
yeah.
a small but a really tangible way.
It's small, but in reality, it's so much bigger than just that.
Absolutely.
That little drop, right?
Absolutely.
What activities, or what would you like to see out in the community to bring the community closer
mm-hmm.
to feeling comfortable with the city and city government?
I feel like one of the most important attributes of anytime you're in a leadership position is to listen. So I spent a lot of my first 5 months listening to community groups and to community members and hearing their concerns and hearing what they think we could do. And so trying to hear that and then trying to have that help inform the decisions or the advice that I give to the mayor about certain things. And so listening is really important. And I try to listen so that I can really understand what the issues are and find ways to address some of the concerns that people have. And sometimes the reality is that not all their concerns can be addressed by the city or the mayor's office. Sometimes their concerns are outside of the jurisdiction of the mayor of the city.
Do you feel a sense of responsibility when community members come to you to find a solution?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's part of the challenge is that, I have this other kind of core belief that when you look at the world today, a lot of the big challenges facing us are a result of people not being comfortable with differences. If you look at how many of the world's challenges start with people not being comfortable with how somebody else worships God, or how or who somebody loves, or what language somebody speaks at home, or when somebody came to this country. So many of those big issues result on people not being comfortable with differences. So I believe that if we're going to solve those problems, we need to create and cultivate people and leaders who are comfortable communicate and collaborate in solving problems across difference. And so I do feel a responsibility to bring people together to the degree that I'm able to in this capacity, to say what can we do to find the core issue and to address it in a way that's productive and collaborative and moves forward in a good way for the community.
I know that the Lincoln One initiative has been out there probably about a year or a couple of years already, and I'm sure a lot of residents haven't really heard what that Lincoln One initiative, due to COVID. I mean, we've all been so enclosed. So can you talk a little bit about what that Lincoln One initiative is? Yeah,
so the One Lincoln initiative, it has so much to do with, I mentioned city boards and commissions, but it's about just a number of things for how do we truly make things more equitable, more belonging? So one of the big initiatives that came out of that you're well aware was about 500 community members came together to develop a welcoming and belonging strategic plan that has to do with what we as a community, as a city and a county can do to make sure that folks feel like they welcome and belong in our community. Yes. Immigrants and refugees have been valuable members of our community going back to the 80s. I remember when I was in high school and how the immigrants and refugees that came to Lincoln High, how they enriched my educational experience by getting to know students that came from other countries and to hear their stories. It was an important part of my education, which I think shaped in a very fundamental way the way I see the world and the work that I do. And so that was a big project that was initiated. The plan, the Welcoming and Belonging Strategic Plan, was unveiled shortly after I started. And so we're working to figure out how to implement the goals of that plan so that when people come, that they feel like they belong and they get connected and that they become enmeshed in the economic, civic fabric of this community. Because they bring so much to this community.
Absolutely, absolutely. How would you measure your success? You know, you're talking about all of these things, and I know you're just 5 months into your job, but I mean, truthfully, what would make you feel successful in this position?
And that is always a challenge when you start to talk about tangible, quantifiable ways to measure this work. I think there's some things like we would see a more diverse workforce and a more diverse makeup and composition of our city boards and commissions. So I see more diverse, that the staff and those boards and commissions would be more representative of the demographics that exist and live in our society, in our city. So I think that would be one way. But I think also that the climate in the city and both in the workforce and in the community would be one that people feel more included. People feel more engaged in the process and feel like their voice is heard. So I think that's a big part of it, and you know that's a tough thing to measure and to assess.
Yes.
I know we've been talking internally about some climate surveys and that thing, but it's a tough thing to measure. But I think seeing more people choosing to engage in the process and to help us solve the problems that face our community would be one of the ways that I would be looking to do that.
So in talking to our community as a whole, what would you say to those individuals who are a little bit that are skeptical
Yeah.
about the makeup of our community, some of those unanswered questions? What would you say to them to kind of have them buy into why Lincoln One Initiative is important?
You know, all this work is really based on relationships, and it is based on trust. And many folks in our community have legitimate concerns for that thing. Their trust has been violated in terms of their interaction. So it's going to take time. You know, it's going to take time. A diversity colleague says that it takes 7 years to change a culture. And so when you talk about, and that's got to be 7 years of focused, intentional activity. So things will get better gradually and slowly. And hopefully that people are patient and continue to engage and to buy into the process and work to make things a little better. I always define leadership as making things a little better than you found it. And so working hard to make things a little better, a little more inclusive, helping more people feel like they belong.
Right. I don't know how many people really know this or actually haven't really thought about this, but in the city of Lincoln, there is, you know, we always talk about T-Town, which some people might not know what that is, and you might want to explain that a little bit. But one of the things that I like to tell people, and I encourage them, is to drive down North 27. And I'm sure you've had that opportunity because you were raised in that area.
Yeah.
What would you tell the people to encourage them to go down there and patronize some of the, you know, the stores, the places, businesses that are there?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the T-Town really, the reference I always understood was that it was the area around T Street. And part of what's really significant is in our history, in our city, there was a time where there was covenants and redlining that restricted where different groups of people could live. And so the area around Malone Center and that area North 27th was one of the areas where blacks and other non-whites could live and own property. And so that's part of our history that we don't often talk about, but that's part of it. And that's an important part of our history. And so that area of town has always been vibrant and diverse and so significant. I mean, I literally grew up at 3129 Dudley, so all of my, you know, I have so many fond experiences about that area of town, and so it's emotional for me because that's where I grew up. That area of town helped make me who I am, and it's a vibrant, incredible place. There's lots of great places to eat. You know, there's just a lot of great things in that area of town. And so, yeah, I encourage anybody to go back and spend that time. There's always that idea that there's like a rough part of town in Lincoln. There really isn't a rough part of town. There's some parts where maybe the home ownership is lower, but there's no part of town that I think isn't a great part of this city.
Right. And it's true, you know, because I grew up right on T Street, right on 30th and T. And so you're right, it's that idea that the redlining, there was only certain places where certain individuals could own property. But the one thing that I see is the diversity, as you mentioned, and the vibrancy in that part of the community. And it makes me feel good inside to see the different businesses that are popping up right on 27th. And so there's the program, My City Academy, that has been going through the city. It's administered through the city, and I think we're going on our 3rd cohort. And that is a very diverse group, and so the majority of that group has really gained a lot of information and have built trust and relationships with community directors. What would you say to individuals who are watching us right now, who one might be interested in My City Academy, but to encourage them that this is not out of their realm, that this is important and they should probably try and be a part of MCA?
You know, a big part of what I think One Lincoln is about is I've had some fabulous opportunities educationally and professionally in my city and with having never left. And so a big part of what One Lincoln is about is making sure that every single resident has the opportunities to be successful and to thrive and to start businesses and to go to school and to achieve whatever their dreams are. And so that's what My City Academy is about. It's making sure that people are able to access the support and resources they need to make their dreams come true and to thrive to the degree that they're able. And so I felt very fortunate that I've had so many incredible opportunities. My first job was I worked at the Lighthouse, which was a great experience. I worked at the Malone Center. I worked at all the programs that nurtured me when I was growing up. Malone Center, LPS, Nebraska Wesleyan University, and now I'm working on behalf of my city so that every single member of our community can have that opportunity. And programs like my city help make sure that people have the resources and the support they need so that they can thrive, whether it's starting a business or going back to school or learning a trade, just whatever it is that they need so that they can navigate and reach the fullest success that they're possible.
You have just done a great job of, and it's true, all the information that you've given, all the way you've expressed yourself on it's very true. The one thing I have to say is that this conversation, I feel there needs to be a second part to it. Because I think there's so much more that we can continue to talk about and educate our community about.
Absolutely.
And it's growing, as we talked about a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's awesome to know that we have somebody in the city, in the mayor's office, who is there to continue that growth, that diversity, looking out for what our community really needs.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not just a community, it's our community.
It is.
And so, TJ, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to coming down and being a part of LCHR show. I hope you'll join us again.
Yes, well, and thank you for inviting me. And it's so good to hang out with another fellow Link and
Yes.
someone who I knew. You know, we knew each other. And so to go back and think about all the things that we've been able to do, it's really encouraging. And I'm glad to get to do this work with you.
Well, and I think one of the comments we both made is, who would have ever thought that 32 years later, two Lincolnites would be here from Lincoln High. So this has been an experience.
But it's a good example that when you provide people with education and support and resources and opportunities, people can thrive and do great things. And you don't have to go somewhere else to do it. You can do it right here in our city, my city, your city. Yes.
Yeah, setting roots and being here for our community.
Yep.
Absolutely, because I think that's one thing that Lincoln High did do for us.
Yeah.
And I think I can speak freely for both
Absolutely.
of us. So thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
here today.
Thank you.
And with this, I would like to thank everybody for joining us for this show. And remember that we all have rights.